Welcome to Scotland. My name is Billy Kay, and I'm a writer and broadcaster and author of the book, The Scottish World. Scotland is, and always was, a proud European nation. When David I, King of Scots, spoke to the inhabitants of his cities in the 12th century, they were addressed as Scotis et Anglis, Frankis et Flemingis, Scots, English, French and Flemish. So we have been a multinational, multilingual European country from our very beginnings. For centuries, trade between Scotland and European nations brought prosperity and cultural riches. One of the few artefacts we have from the patriot hero William Wallace is a letter to the city of Lubeck, then capital of the Hanseatic League, a medieval forerunner of the EU, which stretched from Tallinn in the east to Groningen in the west. Keen to see merchants from cities like Riga and Hamburg return to ports like Aberdeen and Dundee, Wallace informed the Hanseatic capital that Scotland was open for trade once again after liberation from English occupation. We had substantial Scottish merchant communities in European ports like Bergen and Bordeaux, Gothenburg and Gdansk, and as far east as Kėdainiai in Lithuania. In Poland, Scots formed a benevolent and self-help organisation called the Scottish Brotherhood, which had branches in 12 Polish cities. The Danish port of Elsinore not only had a thriving Scottish community, but the Lisle family were provosts of the town and directors of the Sound Toll. The Low Countries too attracted Scottish ships, merchants and migrants, and you can see their legacy in places like the Scottish Quay in Bruges in Belgium and the Scottish staple port in Faire, a little piece of Scotland in the Netherlands, and proudly celebrating that connection in the Scots Houses Museum to this day. As well as granting dual nationality for citizens of both countries, one of the major economic benefits of the Old Alliance between Scotland and France were privileges in the wine trade. The red wine of Bordeaux, called claret, became the national drink and bound Scotland and France so closely it was called the bloodstream of the Old Alliance. Later, Scottish merchants like Sandeman, Graham and Coburn also introduced the wines of Spain and Portugal, sherry, Madeira and port to a thriving home market, the beginning of close ties between Scotland and the Iberian Peninsula. Other important connections between Scotland and Europe were intellectual. Our early diaspora was hugely influential in all the countries we settled, due to our precocious ideal of educating the masses and teaching basic literacy to all the population from at least as early as the mid-16th century. It goes back even further to the Middle Ages when Schottenkloster, Scots-Irish monasteries, took early Christian teaching to southern Germany and Austria, where members of the Schottenstift were involved in creating the University of Vienna. In turn, universities in Scotland thrived thanks to Scots that studied at universities such as Bologna, Coimbra, Paris or Leiden, and then imported new ideas and methods they'd encountered there when they returned to become professors back at home. So successful were they that Edinburgh, Glasgow and Aberdeen became Europe's leading universities for medicine in the later 18th and 19th centuries. Many see the great intellectual achievements of the Scottish Enlightenment having its roots in this cultural interchange between Scotland and continental Europe. James Hutton, the father of modern geology, studied in Leiden, while the great philosopher David Hume and the father of economics Adam Smith travelled to France and Switzerland, to strike up friendships with fellow luminaries such as Quesnay, Voltaire, and Rousseau. Voltaire later eulogized the influence of the Scottish Enlightenment. The Romantic movement in Scotland also had great impact across Europe. Composers from Berlioz to Bizet and from Donizetti to Mendelssohn were inspired by writers like Robert Burns and Sir Walter Scott. James Macpherson, in his guise as Ossian, influenced poets across the continent, among them Germany's Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, Finland's Johann Ludwig Runeberg, and Hungary's Sándor Petőfi. While Scottish themes influenced the thinking of political heroes such as Petőfi in Hungary and Garibaldi in Italy, Scots themselves were also deeply involved in European politics on many occasions. In 1613, when peace was negotiated between Sweden and Denmark-Norway in the Treaty of Kinnared, the diplomats representing the two countries were James Spence of Wormiston for Sweden and Robert Anstruther for Denmark-Norway. They were not only both Scottish, but half-brothers from the East Neuk of Fife. One of our greatest romantic poets, George Gordon, Lord Byron, a son of Aberdeenshire, is still revered as a folk hero in Greece, where he died fighting for Greek independence in 1824. 2 decades later, the Scottish engineer Adam Clarke assisted the Hungarian Revolution in 1848 when he helped an estimated 70,000 men escape via the unfinished chain bridge whose construction he was overseeing. Clarke's grandson, Hajos György, became a famous Hungarian mathematician and is one of many great European figures who were proud to claim Scottish ancestry. Among them, the philosopher Immanuel Kant in Germany, the poet Mikhail Lermontov in Russia, the novelist Jules Verne in France, and the composer Edvard Grieg in Norway. In turn, many famous Scots are descendants of European settlers. The name of Sir Alexander Fleming, the famous Scottish doctor who discovered penicillin, reveals his distant Flemish ancestry. Arthur Conan Doyle, the creator of Sherlock Holmes, grew up the Scottish son of Irish parents. The pop star Paolo Nutini and the artist Ser Edoardo Paolozzi are just 2 of many famous Scots that trace their family roots back to Tuscany and the Abruzzi in Italy. So Scotland was, and very much still is, a European nation, and today is home to the thousands of people from across Europe who contribute to the vibrant energy of our cosmopolitan cities, and as new Scots are valued members of our communities. EU citizens in Scotland share the aspirations of their brother and sister Scots to see Scotland renew those ancient ties with European countries, ties which were so undemocratically broken by Brexit. We appeal to our friends across Europe to help us restore Scotland to her rightful place as a sovereign nation at the heart of Europe.